Hiya bestie. Today we're going to be talking about a new way of budgeting that could really help some people. There's so many different ways to budget, but I've always been adamant in the fact that creating the budget is not the difficult part, it's actually sticking to it. And that's what trips a lot of us up. Sometimes we write a budget, we overdo it, and we're a bit too strict on ourselves. Then ultimately we fail and we say that budgeting's not right for us, so we quit and go back to our old habits. We've heard about the 50-30-20 rule. In fact, I've done a video on that over here. But today I'm doing a video just for the people who don't actually like budgeting. I mean, why you would be subscribed to my channel if you didn't like budgeting, I don't know. But if you aren't currently subscribing, you better do it. So if you find budgeting too hard to stick to, too time consuming, just too annoying to do, then this video is for you, bestie. Today we're going to be talking about the budgeting system called the reverse budget. This is also known as the pay yourself first method. This method's different in the way that it's built around your goals rather than pinching pennies and trying to track everything. In fact, in this budgeting style, you don't have to track anything. You don't have to track your expenses. You don't have to track anything at all. Now let me explain. Let's explain, bestie. I think the easiest thing to do is to show you what my budget looks like. Now this over here is pretty much a standard budget. So here we've got my income, everything that comes in, and then what I have left is here. That filters in through my bills over here. And then I'm left with a certain amount. I bring that over to what I would like to spend my money on. So like how my discretionary spending is. After that, I'm left with a certain amount. That goes through to my sinking funds, the thing that I'm saving up for, and then additional savings there. And then I'm left with a buffer at the bottom. But the reverse budget method works really differently and kind of turns it on its head. So instead of you spending what's left over after each section, what you do is you focus primarily on where your goals are at, and then everything else will fall in line afterwards. So before we take a practical approach and have a look at what a budget might look like, let's talk about the steps that you need to take in order to make this happen. Number one is to take a meaningful look at your money. So that's assessing your cash flow in terms of income, your expenses, what you're paying towards debt, and what your savings are. When you take a look at that, and it can take as long as it needs to, you can make conscious decisions about how you want your budget to look like. For instance, do you spend too much on eating out, or on groceries, on your self-care, or do you not spend enough? Because some people really tend to neglect themselves in that portion of the budget, giving themselves less spending money, which ultimately means that they're gonna do overspends and just fall off the wagon basically. Also, are your savings high enough or low enough to meet your savings goals? Do you have additional goals? Do you have goals like having big holidays and things like that and your income's not quite there? And if that's the case, have you considered additional income from somewhere else? So taking a look at those things is really important. Cutting things where it feels appropriate, adding to things where it doesn't feel appropriate. Don't worry, if that doesn't make sense, we're going to talk about that in a sec. Step number two is to decide how much you want to pay yourself. So if we're talking about pay yourself first, and this budget being centered around what your money goals are, making conscious decisions about where your money goes every single month and making that your priority is the important part of it. So for instance, if you are gung-ho for a holiday, or you're looking to start up a new business, or you know that your kids are starting school and you know you need to make that happen for them, funneling your money towards that in this budget system is a priority, and making sure that your number one thing is taken care of. Step number three is to automate the boring payments. So in this system, you're not tracking your expenses, you're not making sure that your water bill's paid or anything like that. What you're doing is you're making sure that everything's automated and it comes out of the same account. Now, normally what people will do, they'll have a separate bills account because you can chuck the money that needs to go over there and then you just don't need to think about it. And having the relief knowing that all of your money is coming out of the same account and enough money is in there, that's like a wonderful feeling. So automating everything, making sure that there's always enough money in there, but then never worrying about it. Once you've shoved the money over there, you don't need to think about it. That's a key and important part of this. And then after that, number four is just spending the rest however you decide. Now, if you have set up a separate account for your bills, it will be pretty much everything that's left over in your current account. So you can be as reckless, you can be as frivolous, or you can be as frugal as you want with that money. because paying yourself first, because you've decided how much you want to go towards your savings goals has happened, and making sure that your bills are covered means that everything that's left over is guilt-free. You can be confident that you can just spend however you want to. So let's take a practical look at what this might look for somebody in this situation. So we're going to do a budget for somebody called Pam. Let's say Pam with a heart. So we're going to do really general stuff. So we're still using the same framework as what I had, but we're going to do it a little bit differently. So first of all, we're going to say that Pam's income, so their monthly income is $2,500, which is pretty standard. So that's the total that they have. Let's say that their bills all in, so every single bill, their subscriptions, all of that stuff comes up to £1,000 or dollars. So the total up here is $1,000, which leaves them with $1,500. So normally what we would do next is decide how much we want to do on groceries, how much we want to do on travel, our discretionary spending, our self-care and things like that. We're actually going to leave that bit blank. We're going to move over to our sinking funds, or what we would use for our money goals, right? So let's say, for instance, Pam wants to build an emergency fund. So she wants to do an emergency fund here, and she wants to put £250 per month towards that. Let's say, for instance, as well, they want to go on a lovely holiday, and they also want to do £250 per month. So what's happened here already is we've done step number one here, where we've assessed our cash flow, we're earning what we need to earn. Number two is we're discerning how much we want to pay ourselves, so our money goals. So this is the first thing that has happened, right? So number one and number two are here, everything there, yeah? So all of these add up to 500 for their money goals. They do have a little bit of debt, so we're going to work in a debt and overpayment. So debt and overpayment here. And that's, we're going to just say 300, right? So let's just say that's 300. So as you can see in this method, we have skipped over here, because what we do is we have our money goals as our priority. These are automated and this just needs to happen. So we can spend whatever's left. So our discretionary spending, I don't even know how to spell this, so discretionary, right? That says discretionary spending, right? So even though this definitely says discretionary spending, this is our groceries, our travel, our self-care. We can spend this however we want. This is £700. So we can spend all of that because we're meeting our money goals, we are covering our bills, and we're getting ourselves out of debt. So this can be spent however we want, whenever we want. So if we want to do more on groceries, we can. If we'd rather just go out and get drunk all the time, we can as well. So if that's £700, we're left with 800. And because we've done the budget sort of upside down, we know that we can cover everything. We're left with 300 and left with 0. So the buffer's 0, but the buffer really is everything that's left over from here. So we can decide to be frugal here. We can save more and pay off more debt. But in this method, there's no drama. We don't need to track the expenses. We don't need to make sure we spend less than our spending money. We can just spend every month what's in our account. And when the money's gone, the money's gone. So a lot of people can find this budgeting method a lot easier to do because they don't need to worry about their bills. They're achieving their money goals and they just spend what they have left. It's kind of like the no drama, no stress version of a budget. But there are some pros and cons. So let's first talk about the pros, right? So with this method, because you're taking care of your financial goals, you can be confident in knowing that you're constantly making progress towards them every single month and every single week, whenever you get paid, right? The other thing is that because you're not tracking your spending, you know that whatever's in your current account or your account that's dedicated to your spending, you can spend that all guilt-free. So you can be frivolous with it. If you see that you've got more money than what you'd expect, you can go and do cheeky takeaways. You can do whatever you want with that money. So it's all guilt-free and you can do whatever you want with it. So those are your pros. Your cons with this system though is that because you can spend everything, if you don't have an amazing relationship with money, you absolutely will spend everything. Some people take a lot of joy in just being able to really enjoy their money. Some people take a lot of joy in getting further towards their goals, and with this method you can't eke out the tiny bits of progress that like you can do with cash stuffing and things like that, because so much is left for discretionary spending. The other con, and I guess the warning of this, is making sure that you don't sort of overestimate, don't pull your bills back too much, and don't sort of try and minimize. Ultimately you'd be miserable, and that's where this would fall over. So making sure that everything's realistic and your bills are always going to be covered and things like that, and that's how this budget will work, and that's how people will thrive with it. So the important takeaways if you're considering doing this budgeting style, number one is automating the process. So taking the stress out of how your bills work and how your bills are paid, making sure that they're in a separate account, separate away from your main account. Because the worst thing that you could do is having your discretionary spending and your bills all in the same account, because then you can't exactly spend whatever's there if you have to earmark certain amounts for your money. So automating the process, having a second account where all of your bills come out of, and this budget is a really good way to do that. Ultimately, you need to decide whatever budgeting style is right for you is what works for you. So for me, this is far too liberal, it is far too discretionary, and I need limits. I need to tell myself, no, you have this much money and you're saving this much. I need strictness, because if you give me an inch, I will take a mile with money, 100%. But for some people, working towards a tight budget is just miserable. So something like this might be really handy, so that you're always achieving your goals, and then you kind of get to have fun with whatever you've got left. So whatever works for you, bestie, is the correct budget method for you. No shame on what anybody does. I hope you like this style of video, and I hope you found it informative. If you did, let me know down in the comments down below what else you'd like me to talk about. Do we want to talk about zero-based budgeting? Just putting it out there, bestie. Thank you so much for getting through to the end of the video. You know I love it when you get through to the end of the video. Please give this video some love. Make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. And if you are going to comment, please use this emoji. I really enjoyed this video. I enjoyed doing some research on it. I enjoyed doing Pam's budget. So if that is your budget, Pam, you're welcome. But let me know in the comments down below, what sort of budgeting thing would you like me to talk about next? I'd love to know. Have you considered becoming a channel member or a patron? Patrons get exclusive content, sneak peeks, and significant discounts off my Etsy store. Channel members get early access to every single video. In fact, they've seen this video long before you have, bestie. If you like the sound of those perks and you like the sound of me, have a look at the links in the description. You will not regret it, bestie. That's all we have time for today, but until the next video, I would like you to have a wonderful day, have a wonderful week, and have a wonderful budget. Always remember, don't trust Ira. And bestie, I'm going to leave you with the milestones video. We've just recently, well, maybe a month ago, celebrated 9K on this channel, and we are now gunning for 10K. So if you can help me with that, please do. But if you are already subscribed, check out the playlist, because she is a beaut, bestie. Check her out. Watch them all.